public comment period. Reminder, no personal attacks. Anybody wish to address the board this morning?
Good morning. My name is Schoenberg from Yucatan Township. I have lived in several Minnesota counties in my lifetime and have come to this conclusion. Reality is different in Houston County. Law enforcement's philosophy appears to be do as I say, not as I do. Police should be held to a high standard of behavior. They should set an example instead of showing disregard for the laws they expect the citizens to obey. Serve and protect the public, not yourselves. Whistleblowers are not praised for their courage. To the contrary, whistleblowers in Houston County are fired, commit suicide, or have bogus legal charges brought against them. There's no real interest in democracy here, evidenced by this 120-second soundbite allowing no citizen input at the ordinance writing meetings, and several commissioners attempting to stop the public input period at the commissioner meetings. A Houston County employee with significant boundary issues who shows unrelenting favoritism to one citizen at the expense of others, is not truthful at public forums, and tells tall tales in court, is protected. Elected officials say no, no, no to name calling, but call fracks and opponents indecent jerks. The Houston County planning and zoning process is filled with cronyism, deceit, and self-interest instead of representing the common good and protecting our environment. A sheriff's deputy can harass, intimidate, and make false accusations against citizens that don't agree with him. In most locales, that behavior would be considered an abuse of power, but not here. Reality is different in Houston County. Thank you.
Brian Bedgard, Yucatan Township. You all received a letter including a list of permit violations at the Erickson mine, many of which occurred since the renewal permit by this board. Bob Scanlon received a copy of this same letter. He responded a day after receiving it, saying he had done a complete investigation and there was no violations. This is a copy of his letter. Obviously, he could not have done an investigation in that amount of time. Equally obvious is the fact that if he had done any investigating, he could not have reached this false conclusion. Here's a Google Earth map showing that the only road in and out of that mine is entirely within the 50-foot setback of the Erickson's property. Here's a picture showing actual mining activity within that 50-foot setback. He could also just have driven by at 55 miles an hour and seen this to be true. You might believe that these would constitute evidence anywhere except at the Houston County Planning and Zoning Office. This is not going to go away just because Bob doesn't want to deal with it. What is your accountability for this repeated refusal to do his job even after being investigated for not fulfilling his responsibilities? Scanlon's long history of lying about these violations and his continued cover-up show that any ordinance in this county is reduced to the value of toilet paper.
I just think this is getting into personal attacks.
Yes.
That's our policy. We don't allow.
These are facts. These are not personal attacks.
Well, excuse me.
That is all.
It's a professional attack.
That is all it is worth
Right.
if you commit to zero enforcement toilet paper. You wonder why we get angry.
Thank you.
Well, anger is the appropriate response
Your time is up.
to people who spit on the truth and
That's
deny
it.
evidence.
Please.
Yes. Let's control the discussion and prevent citizen input.
Good morning, Michael Fields, Winnebago Township. Say the Skyline Materials mine in Winnebago Township has operated without a permit for years. It has posted no bond or paid any county fees as far as I can determine. Yet it has been granted, 2, 3, I don't know how many county contracts because they're the low bidder. Maybe there's a connection between having an unregulated mine and having the low bid because your overhead's a little lower. Maybe we should not reward people who are not following the rules. Your own land use attorney, Jay Squires, admits that no mine is exempt from regulation. Why does this mine seem to be exempt from regulations? Commissioner, show me, since this mine is located in your district, I'm asking that you get to the bottom of this and also find out why Skyline Materials has not complied with the Board of Adjustment order to fix that setback violation. It's been years. They've had plenty of time. And I think this is probably things you need to know anyway. On another topic, to admit that one may have been mistaken is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows that you're secure enough to take a hit or two without feeling that your very existence is threatened. If the board has information that refutes what I have learned about frac sand mining, it should share that information with the public, and then I will write a letter to the editor admitting that I was wrong. Because right now, geologists, biologists, medical doctors, economists, the DNR, even an ethicist, all agree that frac sand mining is a bad deal for all except the very few who would profit from it. So if you can show that they've got it all wrong, that would sure be swell. And if you can't do that, then you certainly should have inflicted it on us. Thank you for your time.
Morning, Commissioners. Bruce Chemical from Caledonia. Today I'm requesting the Minnesota Data Practices Act from your zoning department as per the Houston County zoning ordinance of December 2009, currently revised this year. Section 0110.2708 Reclamation Plan, Subdivision 1 Reclamation Plan required, quote, any mining operation legally commenced prior to the enactment of this ordinance that does not have an approved reclamation plan shall submit a reclamation plan to the planning agency for review and approval within 5 years of the date of the enactment of this ordinance. And that occurred, I believe, at the end of December of 2009. Accordingly, that would mean that by December 31st of 2014, the Planning and Zoning Department should have on file a 2-column listing of those mines and quarries which have complied with the current county law and those who are out of compliance. There may be a 3rd column categorizing these mines and quarries which have been out of operation for several years. That would be a cessation of said operations, and those conditional use permits should be reapplied for under Minnesota Statute 394.36 nonconformities, and possibly under Houston County Zoning Ordinance Section 1102712 Subdivision 3. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ken Jumper from La Crescent Township. Good to see all of you again. Commissioners, I want to focus my comments on the draft ordinance that the Frac Sand Study Committee completed a couple of years ago. In listening to the previous comments this morning, what is striking is the parallel approach that you Commissioners have taken in each of the examples mentioned. There certainly seems to be a pattern of secrecy, manipulation, and deception that the other speakers today have highlighted in their remarks. When it comes to zoning in general and mining specifically, clearly, Commissioners, some of you have an agenda that justifies any kind of manipulation and any kind of information or the dismissal of any kind of questionable action by a county employee. I often think of the court hearing on the Erickson quarry when your attorney, Jay Squires, said in response to the revelation that both he and Bob Scanlon had informed the Ericksons in writing that the permit had expired. Quote, well, that was privileged communication. My question is, since when is the truth privileged information? The letter that we all received from Bob Scanlon recently claiming that he had investigated the complaint of violations at the Erickson quarry is the same sort of thing. There are no specifics or details of that alleged investigation. And worst of all, the fact that you all received the same letter and don't take action to correct him on it and his other misdeeds says a lot about all of you. The draft ordinance on frac sand mining is predicated on the belief that a strict regulation of this destructive activity through the zoning ordinance is going to occur in the near future. But given the actions of you, the county board, and the planning commission in the recent past in regards to the Erickson mine and the Skyline mine, and the development in secret of the draft ordinance for frac sand mining, why would any reasonable person think that anything is going to be different in Houston County in the near future? Now, Commissioner Storley, before you get upset and fire off another email calling us all jerks, as you did earlier this year, it's
Your
important
time
for
is
all
up,
of you
Ken.
to remember, sooner or later, the truth comes out. Sooner or later, the truth always comes out.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robin Schoenberg from La Crescent Township. I have just two fairly brief comments. First, I want to address what's been discussed here, and I want to stand up a little bit for Brian Van Gorp. He did not say anything personal about Bob Scanlon. He called the document, your ordinance, toilet paper. That is not a personal attack. And just because you don't like what somebody is saying doesn't mean that they don't have the right to speak. The second thing I want to talk about is that I noticed on the agenda that you're discussing the proposed Selco contract. I'm the La Crescent representative on the Selco board and currently the Selco board president. And I would just encourage you to support Selco in the highest amount you possibly can. Houston County is actually below the average of all counties in the Selco area. And I think that that's really shameful. And I think that we need to support our libraries a little bit more carefully. Commissioner Walter, I know you are the former representative for La Crescent, and I appreciate that, and I know you know how important this contract is. So I just encourage you all to support it to the highest amount you possibly can. Thank you.
Any other comments to come before the board?